Okay, we are in the second part of our week 3 lecture. Let's talk about vision and purpose. A group or an organization without vision is like a rudderless boat. It is really hard to control. It is very hard to get the group to where it needs to go. And often you'll lose a lot of people along the way if they're not sure where they're headed or how they're going to get there. And so I have a few just items up here on the screen for you, but I'd like to direct your attention to the idea of vision being that ability to see the goal as an accomplished fact. A great leader will be able to cast vision and see that goal as already being reached, and then help the people on their team to also see how it is that we're going to get there together. Now, just for fun, of course, I have an office clip. I can't show it to you because of copyright, so you can take a look at it after this lecture. But good old Dwight, he's up to his shenanigans again. Let's talk about status and power. And your book does spend some time on this, but I feel like it's something that we need to really emphasize. Status and power differentials with leadership are a very key point. Status and power are two areas that can really be used and abused in very dysfunctional ways. Status and power can also really be leveraged in incredible ways to, again, give voice to the folks that, or give an opportunity or a platform to the folks that maybe would not ordinarily be recognized and be given a seat at the table. And as a leader, it's important for us to garner trust. With the position of leader often becomes influence and privilege. And if we're seen using and abusing that influence and that privilege, folks will not trust us. They will not have a reason to follow us. In fact, there may be some leaders you're thinking of right now and you're saying, yeah, I can identify. I know there are some folks that I don't trust because of the way they've used and abused their status and their power. So let's just talk really quick about status differentials. There's different kinds of status. There's social status, which is honor or prestige that's attached to someone's position in society. There's achieved status. Can you guess which that is? It's because of an achievement. It's attached to a person because of something they are recognized to have done. Ascribed status is more about who you are or where you come from. Ascribed status can also be associated with class or perhaps family wealth or a family member's position in society. Tokenism is another status differential, but it's pretty different than those first three. Tokenism occurs or can occur when a member of a group is very different, has a very different status than the others, and their status is focused on as kind of the defining characteristic or the defining thing about that person that really needs to be focused on. For example, you may see tokenism if you have a group of all female employees and then just one is hired to show, like, yeah, look, we hire males here in this department, look. So that's kind of a description of tokenism. So status, again, is something that can be used for good and for change and for helping create a path for others, and it can also be used incorrectly, used for discrimination, or used for harm. Similarly with power. So when we look at power, when we look at formal power sources, personal power sources, these are these two categories that I want us to focus on. Reward power, well, let's start with coercive power. Coercive power comes from that ability to be able to punish someone for noncompliance, for example, through fear of losing their job, through fear of losing their annual bonus. Leaders can use coercive power when they threaten that people will be punished in order to gain compliance. This is not good use of power. Coercive power is not positive. Coercive power is not something that we should strive for in our leadership. Reward power is kind of close to coercive power, but let's take the manipulation out of it. Here, power comes from one's ability to issue rewards. For example, maybe they can offer a bonus or time off. A leader can use reward power when they use rewards to, help their employees want to achieve goals. They can give pay increases, training opportunities, a special employee day, or even a public compliment or thank you can go a long way. So rewards can be leveraged for good, definitely, and to move a team forward. Can it be used incorrectly in a more of a coercive manner? Sure, absolutely. And then there's legitimate power. Here, power comes from a person's formal right to issue directives and commands because they're positioned in the organization. They're the CEO, they are the charge nurse, or the leader of a unit. So leaders can use legitimate power when they use their position in their organization to, again, achieve compliance with their wishes. And there is a good and a not so good side to this as well. With legitimate power, folks tend to comply with the wishes of their leaders because they could be concerned about losing incentives or losing their job or other types of things, but those things are not necessarily held over their heads with respect to compliance. All right, then we have personal power sources. These are interesting. Expert power, exactly kind of what it sounds like, which is power coming from one's experience or knowledge. For example, a senior surgeon would display the knowledge from years of experience. And so folks would want to follow the directions then of that expert because they're seen as knowing what they're doing. Referent power has to do with being trusted or respected. For example, the boss who treats everyone fairly and with respect, and so has garnered the trust of the team that they lead and has shown that respect and that trust is certainly has been earned on behalf of that leader. There's also information power, which is closely related to expert power, but has to do with an individual having access to information, maybe a pipeline of information, some insider knowledge, or just something that maybe their team, the information that their team needs in order to do well. That's considered another power source. And then finally, connection power. Connection power is also akin to what we would call social capital. Basically, do we know folks who know folks, and are we able to make connections to make things happen? So again, when we think about those power sources, those formal power sources, those personal power sources, there's always room for these power sources to be used in a way that is not conducive or moral or even kind. But there's also opportunity, again, for leaders to leverage their power on behalf of those on their team. And this research, by the way, comes from French and Raven, 1959. This is a long time ago, and since then they've added on information and connection to those personal power sources, but I wanted to give you a little overview of their work. Let's talk about situational leadership. I'm not sure if you've covered this in another class, but I think this is really interesting when we're talking about groups. The idea behind situational leadership is that we look at the competence and the confidence of those that we're leading, and we as leaders will flex our leadership behavior according to the team that we're leading. What is the benefit of doing this? Instead of just saying, well, I'm the leader and how I lead is how I lead and they're going to have to get along with it. Rather than doing that, what's the benefit of saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to get to know my team. I'm going to get to know their competence in the subject matter, in the task I'm asking them to do. I'm going to gauge their confidence. I'm going to learn to read the room and be emotionally intelligent and provide them the kind of leadership that they need in order to succeed. To me, I would much rather be known as a situational leader rather than a leader who is rigid or inflexible with my leadership style. So I thought I'd share a little bit of this with you, and then we'll do a little bit of practice on situational leadership. So Hersey and Blanchard, they are the authors, the scholars behind this model, and they talk about how good leaders, again, are able to read the room, are able to understand what their teams need, and they will want to develop their team as self-motivated. That group that is able to be self-motivated will not constantly need to be, cheerleaded and coached at every turn of the bend. However, some will need it more than others. And what they say is that when a leader has high and realistic expectations from their team, that they'll see high performance. But if a leader has low expectations and they're unrealistic expectations, that they will see low performance from their team. So again, this combo of confidence and competence, where is our team at, and how do we instill in them that we are here for them as much as they need us, and able to impart knowledge and wisdom and also encouragement, again, as needed. It really depends first when we start with the development level of the follower. Pause 1 second. So when our followers are enthusiastic beginners, they're in this D1 category. They're excited maybe to do the task, but don't really know what they're doing, don't really feel confident doing it on their own. And then what we have is called the D2, the Disillusion Learner. These folks might have some confidence and some competence, but they're definitely not there as far as the task is concerned. Then you have a D3, a capable but cautious performer. These folks have a measure of confidence, and they have some experience and some competence in the area. And finally, you have D4, those self-reliant achievers. These people have been around the block, they know what to do, they're very confident, they really just need you to kind of get out of the way and let them do their thing. So what Hersey and Blanchard tell us is that, again, with each of these four behaviors, is that we will match the readiness of the individual with our directive and supportive behavior. So in this S1 category, I'll kind of circle that here. The leader's doing a lot of directing, telling, one-way communication. Hey, you need to do this. This is how, this is where, this is why, this is when. I'm here for you. You've got this. You're going to do this job. You're going to do this job, and I'll be in very close touch to make sure you have everything you need. In an S2, this coaching behavior, the leader is kind of more of a seller. Instead of telling, they're selling. They're saying, hey, you've got this. I'm going to support you emotionally with resources. Let's communicate back and forth. Let's keep those lines open. I'm going to provide you some direction, but I want to keep checking in on you, make sure you have what you need and you're doing what you need to do. In S3, we have a more confident and competent group of folks working on their task, and so the leader really becomes more of a supporter. The leader is participating in this with their team members. There's shared decision making. It's not just, hey, this is the way, here are the 4 things, but it's more of, hey, I think we could go this direction. These are our different factors. Let's talk about that. Let's make a decision together. And then the leader is providing a lot less task behaviors, but they're keeping that really high relationship behavior. And here I want to pause, because I think that this S3 supporting, participating, is a really great example of, Hersey and Blanchard came up with it, that we don't need to be completely hands-off as leaders. That's not what most of our people will want. This supporting behavior, I would argue, is where we would find most of our teams needing, especially in your profession where you have very highly competent, confident people, or at least with a mid level of competence and confidence, that those folks want to be in on that decision making when possible. And also they still want the relationship. They don't want you to say, okay, I'm your leader, but you know what you're doing. Bye, I'll be in my office. I'll be in my corner. Call me if you need me, kind of a thing, but then you make yourself scarce. They do want you, alongside them. They're able to communicate. Okay, delegating is S4. We see fewer folks in this category because, again, that's high confidence, high competence. And to maintain high confidence and competence all the time for a team means that they're probably their roles have very little change, and their tasks that they are set to do have very little change. At this stage, the leader is still involved in some decision making, though. They're never completely backed out. But really, most of the responsibility, most of the process of how things are going to get done is passed on to the individual or group. I want to again emphasize, a delegating leader, they don't just walk away and say, well, I'm hands off, they'll let me know if they need me, kind of thing. I think it's still good to do check-ins and to provide that support and just show like, hey, I'm here. You are highly confident, you are highly competent, you can do your job, but I'm here for you if you need me. Okay, so let's do a little exercise to see if we got the point of situational leadership. Now you're going to say either S1 through 4 and either D1 through 4 using this chart that's on your page, and I'll give you a second to come up with the answers. Read this first scenario. So you're responsible for the productivity of a group of high school students who are detasseling corn in Nebraska. Yes, this is a real job that my husband had growing up in Nebraska. And the students chose this job because of the money they can make, but they haven't done the job before and they're a little nervous to start. What would you call this group? On the directive behavior. Yeah, I would call them a D1. They have low competence and probably low confidence, it sounds like. So maybe a D1. And so our kind of behavior we would match with these students would be S1, directing. Lots of telling. Hey, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. These are the steps for the job. And watching them to make sure after demonstrating for them that they're doing the job correctly until they get the hang of it. And then they might go more to an S2, that coaching, because they're in the groove. All right, good job. Let's do another. You are the executive director of the United Way. Hey, good job. Got a promotion. And you need to get all of the volunteers that are individuals from diverse backgrounds and socioeconomic status who have never raised funds. That sounds like a challenge. And they're going to do work to raise 10% more dollars next year. So you want to raise even more money than you've raised in the past. So you've got this group that are volunteers, they're willing and able, but you might need to inspire them a little bit. There could be some folks in there with some competence. They have all sorts of, coming from all sorts of different kinds of backgrounds. They might have all kinds of different ideas about how to raise funds and how to use their social connections to raise funds, or, different ideas. So in this case, what would you use? This could be either an S2 or an S3. I would lean more towards that D2, S2, because you have folks that may or may not have some experience, and you have folks that may or may not feel confident in what they're doing. And so it's going to be a lot of coaching. Still lots of direction, still lots of support, but not quite so hands-on as maybe the directing. All right, let's do another one. You're the supervisor of a group of individuals who move furniture for an event company. They've done 20 events together this month. What do you think? 20 events? Yeah. I'm thinking this is a maybe D3, S4 group, or maybe S3 group. They've got lots of experience, 20 events. Hopefully things are going well in those events. So they might just need you to provide some supporting behavior, or perhaps delegating behavior and allowing them to do their thing. And again, being there to check in with them as needed. All right, let's do one more. Your company completed an addition that will allow for 20 more offices. Yay! You're the head of a committee comprising workers whose task it is to decide who will have single offices and where people will move. Well, offices are always a big decision in a group. For this group, I would say, well, I'll let you think about it first. I would say maybe this is a D4, a very high competent, high confidence group that might need a little bit of supporting. They might need a combo of kind of an S3 and an S4. But not a lot of direction when it comes to how things are supposed to go. And you're the head of the committee, so there's lots of opportunity for conversation and ideas exchanged there. All right, we're going to skip these last two for sake of time. This week, I want you to think about and reflect on this. How can you use your power or position to help others? Folks in your workplace, in your home, or your other group setting, maybe your group here for class. How can you help them win this week? How can you help them feel successful, be successful? And you might take a page from Situational Leadership. You might think about status and power differentials. You might think about the life of someone like William Wilberforce, who had to work 50 plus years to see his vision come to pass. But how can you personally use your power or position for others? And then finally, looking ahead. This week again, you're going to meet with your team, complete your annotated bibliography. This is what we've got coming up here on the screen as far as assignments. And as always, I'm available to you. Please reach out. Please send me a text, send me an email. Let me know you'd like a phone call, anything like that, if I can be helpful to you as you navigate this course. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, and we'll see you soon.